Ladies and gentlemen, it is another week, another Essential Wrestling Podcast, episode number 98. Karl is on assignment. Karl's not here, but I'll tell you who is here. John Smith and John DeConnie. We're going to be holding down the fort for the entire show today. John Smith will take off a little later. But, guys, today's show is powered by the Eastern Observer. Graphics are presented by Minutes to Bell Time. Picks are sponsored by Pro Wrestling Pick'em, where you can play against your friends or play against the universe. And as Al likes to say, guys, she'll like it too. John Smith, the top part of our screen. John, how are you today?
Can't complain. I got a little family obligation a little later in the evening, so I got to cut out of the show early, but I'll give it my all while I'm here.
We would expect nothing less than that. John DeConnie, how are you today?
Not bad, sir. How about yourself?
Very good, very good. Well, we are, I pull up the calendar. We are 11 days away from WrestleMania, and we have a ton of ground to cover before we get there. We have the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic concluding this week. We have two big title matches on Impact. We'll be main eventing this show with Thunder Rosa and her big championship win on Dynamite, but we are going to curtain jerk the show with Friday Night SmackDown and the adventures of Cowboy Brock Lesnar, and I'm going to kick it right over to John Smith. John, Roman Reigns kicked off the show, and he was greeted by Brock Lesnar just a few moments later.
Yeah, well, apparently Paul Heyman was fed some misinformation where they were told that Brock's plane was stuck in Saskatchewan, but then he got some more information while they were in the ring that Brock's plane had landed, and he's on his way to the arena right now. So then Roman kind of acts like a little bitch. And he's like, you told me that he wasn't going to be here. So they run to the back. The Usos run with him. Paul Heyman rolls along trying to keep up. They get into some giant SUV. And all of a sudden you hear some beeping. And you see Brock in some machine that they told us what it was, but I forget what it was called. And it's got two little forklift spears that went through the windows and lifted the car up and drove it all over the place, and then they escaped and got out into another car, and it was a whole thing. But they've done messed up now.
I think in the forklift business, they call that a forklift.
They were calling it something else, though. They were calling it some different machine. They made a point to call it something that wasn't a forklift. But it had a forklift attachment to it. I don't know. But you done unleashed the bipolar beast, apparently, which is supposed to intimidate somebody like a mental problem. I don't know.
We have somebody else, John Kreider, chiming in. That was a forklift, he says.
Then why were they not calling it a forklift? I'm going to go find out what the hell they were actually calling it.
Yeah, they went out of their way to say what kind or brand of forklift it was, because it was the Brock Lesnar of forklifts. It was a big piece of machinery.
Well, not only that, all that happened, Brock also ripped a door off the truck they were trying to drive away in. And WrestleMania is going to be 2 weeks away. Blood for blood, he says. Brock says to Roman. So 11 days, probably 12 days for that one. I guess that's night 2. So 12 days from today. About 15 or 16 from then. Also on SmackDown, Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs got a win over Los Lotharios. Boogs cruise on Garza for the win there. It's not before WrestleMania, but it seems like Rick Boogs is probably going to get a big push here. Maybe they'll do tag titles first. We'll see. Throughout the show here in the SmackDown and Raw segment, I might ask you guys to kind of chime in on a few things here about some early predictions. We have a whole WrestleMania show coming up pretty soon, but as it stands right now, we had that big Brock Lesnar. We had that Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns match to kick off the show. Is there any way Roman Reigns is losing this belt to Brock? What do you guys have you got enough information to make that call yet? To me, it's hard.
for me, it seems like it's so obvious that Roman's going to win that it seems like Vince might swerve us, like he did with the second Roman versus Brock match. And we all thought Roman was winning that second one, the second one at WrestleMania. I mean, so I don't know. It could happen. I wouldn't give it 100% Roman, but I still think he's going to win.
A front end loader, he says. John Kreider says maybe that was called.
Yeah, there you go.
John DeConnie, anything on that?
Just like Smith said, it when you know that they kind of already have next year's WrestleMania built around Roman, it seems just so obvious, but there's plenty of time to put the belt back on him. So as I'm making that pick, it's going to really hurt because, I mean, how can you ever say like Brock Lesnar doesn't have a chance? Like, yeah. I think it makes the most sense that Roman holds the belt, but I would not be even a little bit surprised if Brock walks away with it. I probably still will wind up putting my money behind Roman, though.
Well, you guys don't have very long to shore up those predictions because on April 1st, we'll be making formal predictions on our WrestleMania special. So we'll be talking about that as we go through the show today for sure. All right. So also on SmackDown, Sami Zayn, he blamed Johnny Knoxville for his loss at the Intercontinental Championship, challenged Johnny Knoxville to make the WrestleMania match a street fight. Anything goes. I guess anything goes, not a street fight. Johnny Knoxville agreed. So that's it's going to be anything goes.
Now, I don't know a lot about Johnny Knoxville. I was never really a regular watcher of Jackass. It seems like a lot of people who get into the entertainment industry have a background in theater and high school and whatnot. They went out of their way twice to call it an anything goes match. Does anyone think Johnny Knoxville is going to come out in like a little sailor suit and do a little Broadway number?
That'd be funny. I want to see the whole cast of Jackass get involved and have them all just be like, the little the dwarf and then the big fat guy Preston at the same time. Wee Man and Preston. Maybe they can bounce him around onto Sammy. It's going to be fun. I really look forward to this. This is one of the few celebrity matches I think belongs in
I think
WWE.
It's the wedge between two serious moments for the reasons that you just said, right? Like if they're like think somebody's going to have a show stealing performance and they've got to follow it up, they throw this one in the middle to kind of the crowd gets a little laugh and then it's basically resetting and starting over. So it's not like that. Yeah, nobody has to follow that show stealing match.
You talk about the women's tag match?
Is that? I mean, you're gonna try to call that just a tag match? It's a fatal 4-way tag match for now, but maybe more people will be added to it later. Type of match.
It's gonna end up being a battle royal.
I mean, last year it was this is what it was. Last year it was a gauntlet match on night 1, and then an actual tag match on night 2. I believe is how they did it last year. So. This year, they're just trying, like you said, they're doing a battle royal, basically. Pat McAfee was summoned from ringside to report to the office, the principal's office, Mr. McMahon. Apparently, we find out later that an apology was being requested. So Pat McAfee did apologize to Austin Theory. Sorry. I don't remember the exact words. You guys remember the exact words? Basically, sorry, Austin Theory's such a punk and a loser, and I believe he used the word ass, but it was not very sincere apology. That story continues on Raw, so we'll get to that in a minute. But coming off the Big E injury last week, Ridge Holland had another match with the New Day this week. This week he was going one-on-one with Kofi Kingston, John DeConnie.
Yes, indeed. And we got a medical update from Big E beforehand. He seems to, all things considered, be doing great. So we kind of went into that with, a little uplift and then turn it right around. And, we got Butch jumping around ringside trying to, kind of get in Kofi's ear. And I think that's where that's headed. I think those two are going to have probably a series of matches, maybe leading up to, maybe after WrestleMania. But Butch would get tossed from ringside, And he never even made it back up the ramp because Rich turned right around, scooped Kofi up, hit Northern Grit for the 1, 2, 3. It was, not quite 7 minutes of a match. We got to see Kofi jump around. We got to see Ridge be very powerful. Exactly what you would expect out of those two. But I think coming down the line, Kofi versus Butch is going to be a really nice series of matches.
I think, I agree. I think that'll be a fun set of matches. I'd like to see the look on Kofi's face as Butch tries to break his fingers. John Smith, are you going to defend that Butch rename?
I can't defend it. No, I cannot. The same way I couldn't defend what they were doing to Karrion Kross on the main roster. But as long as if he goes and becomes Intercontinental Champion within the next 6 months, I don't think we'll have much more to say about Butch. Okay, but if they mishandle him, then we'll be talking crap about Butch for the next 20 years.
Speaking of talking crap about somebody for the next 20 years, I forgot to bring up as in the sequencing of the show here, Happy Corbin and Jinder Mahal, they took an L to Drew McIntyre and the Viking Raiders, John Smith.
Yeah, it was a kind of a cluster bleep of a match. It was the story of the match was kind of this Baron Corbin running away from Drew to set up the story for their WrestleMania match. But the end of the match, Drew gets the hot tag, but Happy Corbin just turns around and runs away and tags in Shanky so Shanky can take the L. Shanky's probably the most unfeared big man of all time in WWE. He eats the Claymore 1, 2, 3, and Drew just laughs at Happy Corbin while he looks all distraught over the whole thing.
Well, spoiler alert right now, I'm going to tell you I'm picking Drew McIntyre to win the McIntyre-Corbin match, and I don't suspect I'll change my mind between now and when we do the show next week. The show concluded, SmackDown concluded with a Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey promo segment. Charlotte called Ronda out. Ronda came out, and by the time the whole thing was said and done, Ronda got put through a table to send the show to off the air. So that's where we stand. No matches again to pick from SmackDown last week, but we do have some action coming on Raw this week. So as we switch over to Monday Night Raw, guys, were you how excited were you when you turn on Monday Night Raw and the first thing you hear is that sound you haven't heard since they did the last reunion show? That glass breaks. Did you guys think Stone Cold was going to walk out, or did you know as soon as you heard the music that it was going to be Kevin Owens doing exactly what Kevin Owens did, and that's dress the part of Steve Austin?
Yeah, I didn't think we were getting Stone Cold this early, and I think it's hilarious and not the least bit unintentional that not that WWE would ever say F you to the city of Chicago because they have, deep roots there and whatnot. But the fact that Chicago has kind of been AEW's home away from home, I think that was kind of a twist in the knife in their back moment there to have Stone Cold's music come and then have cosplay Kevin Owens come out afterwards. And I just thought it was beautiful.
John Smith, it was bad enough the first time, but when he did it the second time, that was some serious heat. Chicago would be pissed at WWE.
Double troll. I loved it. I mean, when the music first hit, I probably gave it 60-40 chance it was Kevin Owens coming out, but I would thought is Stone Cold there already and they didn't advertise it? That's weird. And then when the second time hit, I knew it wasn't going to be him, and it was perfect. That's why Kevin Heel is the best promo in WWE, in my opinion.
Yeah, he is. I thought all his mannerisms were great too. He had been working on his Stone Cold impersonation for a bit of time. He had everything all set. So Kevin Owens, he's on his way to WrestleMania. I don't know if we're picking the KO show. Who's going to win the KO show? But I'm sure we'll talk about it on next week's WrestleMania episode. One person who is still trying to figure out his path to WrestleMania is Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens' best friend, Seth Rollins. He was backstage with Kevin Patrick. He was upset about it, but then Patrick got him, asked him some questions. Seth starts laughing maniacally. Eventually, this turns into sort of the same thing we had last week. Seth Rollins' big idea is that he's going to just go ahead and take AJ Styles' spot at WrestleMania, and we'll have Seth Rollins versus Edge. And Seth says, I'll put the final nail in the coffin. I should have ended him at Hell in the Cell, and I didn't. But and AJ, you can have your time to recuperate. AJ's like not going to take the match, but Sonya and Adam Pearce force him into taking it. They have a great match to close the show on Raw. They go 23 minutes, horrific finish. Edge comes out with a chair and hits AJ Styles. That ends the show. Rollins gets DQ'd. AJ will go on to face Edge at WrestleMania. Seth continued to have no path to WrestleMania, except he says WrestleMania or Monday Night Raw will not even happen next week unless he's given his WrestleMania moment. So I presume that Raw is going to start with Seth Rollins in the ring. He already pushed over the commentary table, pulled off the Raw sign off the turnbuckles. Guys, any predictions at this point of what this means? No Raw next week unless he's given his WrestleMania moment.
Well, he had addressed the Cody chance a little bit when he said that, like, oh, rumors don't make WrestleMania moments, something like that.
Yep.
So let's really hope that he was being truthful there, and that we're not getting Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes at all.
Yeah, there's no mystery if people are wondering. There's no mystery about how John Smith feels about Cody. Let's see.
Cody's trash.
Now the interesting thing, Mike Johnson from PW Insider confirmed last week that Cody Rhodes had signed with WWE, and the internal plans, I guess, have been Cody versus Seth Rollins. But at one point, it was Shane McMahon versus Seth Rollins. So perhaps they have this storyline going, and they could be fooling us all. Maybe Cody will return the day after WrestleMania. John DeConnie, any predictions here? Is Shane McMahon going to be the person?
Could you imagine? I mean, originally, and at one point, wasn't it Shane McMahon versus Austin Theory, for Daddy's Love, because, Austin was being used as an underling to Vince. At this point, if it's not Cody, like, I'm not going to be excited to see Cody, but if it's not Cody, who the hell is filling in that spot, and what is Seth going to do? Is he going to, like, I think even less people want to see Shane again, especially after what happened, with the Royal Rumble. So it's just going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess either way, because Cody's going to get he's going to get his initial pop because, oh my God, he's back, blah blah blah. Then after we see one or two matches, we're going to realize, all right, Vince didn't respect this guy or give a shit about him anyway. So he's headed back to the mid card after a week or two, and then all this build up for what?
Gable Steveson.
Yeah, Gable Steveson. He's going to be at Mania. I wonder in what capacity, but I'm sure he'll be. We should talk about that. We don't typically talk about NCAA wrestling, but Gable Steveson did win the NCAA championship for the second year in a row. Left his wrestling boots or shoes on the mat. So he is off to WWE now, and I'm sure he'll be at WrestleMania in some capacity. But I did want to mention on the Cody thing that I just, there's part of me that says Seth Rollins will be standing in the ring demanding his match or whatever, and Shane McMahon will bring out Cody. We'll get both. Shane McMahon, the whole, like, I bought WCW back in the day to try to take down Vince. Now I'm going to bring in this guy who's tried to kill WWE or whatever. I don't know, tried to kill WWE, but tried to compete. All right, let's move on through the show. Rey and Dom Mysterio defeated the Dirty Dogs. Dom hit a 619 on Rude and a frog splash for the win. But next week, after the match, Miz attacked Rey on the outside, hit a skull-crushing finale on the floor, ripped off Rey Mysterio's mask. How dare he? Rey Mysterio is a legend. And next week, we get the singles match. Rey Mysterio versus The Miz. It's the first match that we are going to get to pick. This is, of course, kind of a preview of WrestleMania, because WrestleMania is Rey and Dom versus Logan Paul and The Miz. John DeConnie, The Miz says that Logan Paul was a huge fan of Rey Mysterio, but he's going to give Logan Paul that mask. What do you think is going to happen in this match next week? Who do you got?
Miz mentioned he's going to dare, Logan Paul to wear it to the building. So I guess we're going to get some Logan Paul this week, which I'm not thrilled about. But if he shows up wearing that mask, ripping the mask off of Rey at this point, yes, we're supposed to be, completely bamboozled by it, but let's not forget, for months we saw this guy without a mask back in his WCW days, so it's not that big a deal. But if Logan Paul comes out wearing Rey's mask, I think that's almost a little bit bigger of a deal. And again, I don't really care about Logan Paul to begin with, but I think Rey will really be charged up going into that match with Miz. So give me Rey in that match.
Makes sense to me. John Smith, I'm not even sure we get a finish in this particular match, but what do you think?
I like Miz via cheating. I think it ends up with Rey and Dom coming out on top in the end. So I think they'll lose all the way leading up to it.
It's an interesting thing. Like WWE brings in these celebrities for these matches. You've got Johnny Knoxville and you've got Logan Paul. The celebrities don't want to come in and look like a fool, right? So it's kind of like, John, you said you think the Mysterios will end up winning or, going over in the end or being the victorious or whatever. I don't know. I don't think Logan Paul wants to look like an idiot, although he did fine looking like an idiot last year. So
he doesn't have to take the fall, though. Miz could be the one that takes the fall,
That's true. That's true. And they were kind of building that up in the Cleveland episode of Raw a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. John Smith, somebody else who's looking for a WrestleMania match. All the storyline has been dedicated to Seth Rollins looking for his WrestleMania match, but there is somebody else that's also shopping around for an opponent. And this particular week, Amos defeated Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz in a handicap match.
Yeah, and they handled them pretty well. He handled them pretty well. They got a few shots in on him, but he just stopped everything with just a choke, just stopping things. Double choke bomb. Aziz laid there for way too long while he did stuff to Apollo, then double stacked him via a la Roman Reigns last year at Mania. I don't want to see Omos versus Seth, so I'm glad they're keeping their two roads apart because I feel like they would have Seth beat him somehow. I think Omos needs to stay undefeated. I would love to see Omos versus Cody and have him just ragdoll Cody everywhere, just grab him by the ankle and just start smashing him like a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Oh. Well, there's your Omos update. You're right. They have to keep these two well apart because it's basically the same storyline they have for Omos and they have for Seth Rollins. So
they did finally do a thing about the Andre Battle Royal, like a little segment about it. It wasn't a in-ring segment. It was just like a clip that they made. But they're finally mentioning the Battle Royal, so hopefully we're getting it.
Yes, they showed the clip of Gronkowski getting involved in the Battle Royal a few years ago. So I thought that meant that we were going to get Gronkowski on the show but I don't know. Brady went back to work, so I assume Gronkowski is too. I'll have to watch the the primetime rundown to figure out what's going on with that. All right. So in John Smith, you had already alluded to on the show about the mess that is the women's tag team title match. Backtracking a little bit to SmackDown, Naomi and Sasha Banks versus Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan was supposed to happen, but that ended in a no contest because Natalya and Shayna Baszler attacked both teams. And then Sonya Deville said, "I like what you're doing. Why don't you get added to the match?" So now that's how we get to this four team match, which is funny because Seth Rollins can't just attack somebody and get in a match. That doesn't work for him, I guess. So But anyway, Zelina approached Carmella backstage at Raw. She slapped Carmella, punches fly, security pull apart, the whole thing. Carmella goes ringside to complain to Corey Graves. Meanwhile, we have a match. It's Natalya and Shayna Baszler against Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. Match ended with an assisted clothesline, as Jimmy Smith called it. I would call it, under all other circumstances, I would call that a heart attack. A famous maneuver. Shayna gets the win here after Zelina and Carmella quickly reconcile, attack both teams, make up in the ring. But that leads us to another match that we have to pick for next week. Now, John Smith, these women's tag matches are historically, we just talked about one that had a no contest. Same thing I said before. I don't see a finish here. The ref's going to throw this out, I think.
I guess you got to go with Baszler and Natalya on this one because they're the newest ones in the feud, aren't they?
They are. Yeah, and John DeConnie, I should say that the 8-person tag that we're picking right now, Natalya and Shayna Baszler and Carmella and Zelina Vega versus Rhea Ripley, Naomi, Liv Morgan, and Sasha Banks.
Yeah, and like you said, we very well may not. This may just turn into an 8-way schmoz, and it'll go to commercial with the referee throwing it out or whatnot. But if we get a finish, I think it'll be the heels that get the win here going in, because I don't think there's any chance that the heels get the win at the show.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to go ahead and pick the faces because I have been on the show and said that I don't ever see the tag champs winning any matches once they get the tag belts. So I'm going to say Sasha Banks and company get the win here. So what profits a man to gain a world and sell his soul was the question that Becky Lynch put to Bianca Belair in her promo, mid-ring sit-down promo last night. Well, she says she already sold her soul because the fans had turned on her so that she could hang on to the Raw Championship for these last 15 months. Nobody's beaten her for that. And she says, what will Bianca do? So Bianca wasn't there that night, so they will probably see each other again sometime before WrestleMania, I hope. But what profits a man to gain the world and sell his soul? Deep stuff.
Becky getting biblical on Bianca's ass.
Yes. So the Austin Theory saga continues. He's backstage with Sarah doing his pre-match interview because he has a match coming up against the United States champion, Finn Balor. And Finn Balor defeated Austin Theory, but John DeConnie, a lot led up to this.
Yeah, so Theory was asked backstage, how did you feel about what was clearly not a sincere apology by McAfee? And unfortunately for Theory, I don't know how good he is on the mic, because you definitely can get the sense that he's trying to remember a script, and he's not really that good at it yet, at remembering other people's words. But he basically goes on to say that I don't care. As long as he made the apology, that way our match continues to be set for Mania, and I get to beat his ass at Mania. So they go out, they start the match with now Finn Balor and Austin Theory, and McAfee has joined the commentary team, and he's kind of having words with Corey Graves, and they're kind of like there's kind of half heat between them, but then McAfee can't sit still. He jumps up 15 times to kind of get in Theory's face, but not touch him, because if he touches him, the match is off at Mania. Blah, 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 blah. Well, he distracted him enough that when Theory had set up to do his tumbling cutter or tumbling stunner, whatever you want to call it, where he starts on the outside, McAfee held him up just enough, I guess, for Finn to recover. That way, when Austin tumbled in, Finn grabbed him and rolled him right into an inside cradle for the 1, 2, 3. And, check a box on the roll-up meter. We get a roll-up win for the United States champion.
Yes, and let us review how we started the week. here's the Raw roll-up figures to start the week. Before we get into any of these roll-ups, we know what Raw is going to get one added to the list here, but Raw in a commanding lead with 12 over AEW with 8. But I say, if you stay tuned at the end of this show, there was a dark horse in that competition this week that really added some numbers to the list. So stick with us. All right, John Smith, the tag team title situation is it's turned into that's going to be a triple threat match as well. The Raw tag team title. We have RK Bro facing off against the Alpha Academy. They're also going to be facing the Street Profits at WrestleMania. On Raw last night, we had RK Bro versus Alpha Academy.
Yeah, and it started with Randy getting his arm worked on well, first off, started with some shooshing. Shoosh, please. And look at that face. Look at that face on Otis. So still one of the best promos in wrestling right now is the Alpha Academy. But yeah, he was working on Randy's arm, and we get Riddle coming in, and then of course Riddle gets body checked on the outside of the ring as we go to break, and we come back and he's still getting worked over, and then we get the hot tag to Randy. Randy takes over. Then we get another tag with Riddle coming back in. We get the Bro Derek for the 1, 2, 3 on what's his name?
Gable.
What's his name?
Gable.
Why was that? I was about to call him Angle. The whole time I had Angle in my head, and I didn't want to say Angle because I knew his name wasn't Angle. It was really screwing me up. But then we get the Street Profits coming out for the save after Otis starts beating up on Riddle. But then the Street Profits do some sort of 3D looking move that ends up in a DDT instead of a cutter to Gable, and then a nice frog splash as usual, where he kind of hit knees first, but whatever. But we got a little attitude from the Street Profits now. They're not just a cheesy face gimmick anymore. We got some mean face coming from them. I like it.
Heel turn, you think? Heel turn coming?
I think after WrestleMania is going to be when the heel turn actually is full fledged, and they're like, telling each city how much they suck and stuff like that. I think they're going to save that for after WrestleMania.
Let me tell you about something that's coming after WrestleMania. It's coming to the April 4th Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. It's Veer Mahan. He is coming. We have a date.
They didn't specify the year, though.
They did not specify the year. You are correct. We could be waiting a while.
What year is the next Raw that's on April 4th? Probably like 6 years from now, right?
Oh my! It might depend on whether there's a leap year. All right, let's round off our Raw talk here with the 24/7 championship title picture. We usually have people running all over the building, chasing each other down, and this week our segment that featured our characters from the 24/7 division was a mixed tag team match. John DeConnie.
Yeah, it started backstage with Reggie and Dana just chatting, and then Tozawa and Tamina are after them. And poor R-Truth, he's almost on the outside of this whole thing because he doesn't have a female sidekick. So we need to find someone for him to bring this whole gimmick together, so we eventually get a three-way mixed tag match. But that whole segment backstage wound up with Tamina laying on top of Tozawa, but Tozawa didn't get a kiss this time because she's all about that belt now. She doesn't no more smooches. She wants that 24/7 title. Fast forward to the next segment. They're in the ring. It's Dana and Reggie versus Tamina and Tozawa, and it's your standard who really cares about the 24/7 championship. Certainly not Vince. 68-second match with Reggie hitting the big top pop and landing on top of Tozawa for the 1, 2, 3.
I mean, the biggest pop of the match happened with Tamina fell face first into the lower abdomen of Akira Tozawa.
Very
extreme lower abdomen to the second belly button.
All right.
Crazy.
All that said, guys, Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar will be on Monday Night Raw. Roman making the trip over to Monday Night Raw from his normal Friday time slot. So I don't know. They're both going to be there. It's not like there's a match, but maybe they'll use some other piece of machinery not called a forklift this week.
Yep.
So let's see. James Wheeler, very excited that Veer Mahan is coming to Raw. He is all caps for Veer Mahan coming to Raw on April 4th.
Stop yelling at us, James.
The 24/7 championship he is wanting to rebrand as the Hot Potato All Day Every Day Championship. That's fine. We'll go with that.
I think we'd have to abbreviate that, though. I don't think they're going to want to say that each time.
Okay. There might be
The HPADEAD.
Hepatic. Yeah. Okay. Get back to us, James Wheeler.
Yeah, we need to streamline that.
Work on it.
All right. Well, let's move. We are marching towards, we've been talking about how we're marching towards WrestleMania, but we're also marching towards NXT Stand and Deliver.
Yeah, buddy.
So we have a whole bunch of stuff that happened on last week's show and stuff that's coming up on this week's show that's feeding into Stand and Deliver. But John Smith, the show kicked off with a big North American Championship qualifier. Santos Escobar taking on Cameron Grimes. The winner gets into the big ladder match where Carmelo Hayes has foolishly put the title on the line.
Yeah, this one's kicked off the show, and it did not disappoint. This is one of those matches where, I would just suggest going back and watching it because it's real smooth. There's nothing, totally spectacular about the match, but, it just went real smooth. We got a little bit of interference from Legato as the heels, of course. It ended with Grimy going for something from the corner, some jumping something, lands up on Santos' shoulders, flips him over into a phantom driver. 1, 2, 3. Then we get Santos is on his way to the North American ladder match. Can't wait.
Yeah, and Cameron Grimes, meanwhile, is he's backstage with Mackenzie. He's very upset over his failures and that he's going to miss Stand and Deliver. So we'll see. I think the verdict's still out on whether he'll miss Stand and Deliver, but if he misses Stand and Deliver, maybe he'll make the Raw after Mania. So,
or maybe he can host Stand and Deliver. That'd be fun too.
Pulling a page out of Shotzi Blackheart's book. Where's Shotzi Blackheart?
Hopefully not the same page.
All right. Let's not go any further. All right. A-Kid also got a win over Kushida. A-Kid did not qualify for the ladder match, but he qualified for a ladder match qualifier, which he'll have this week. He'll be taking on Grayson Waller in a ladder match. And guys, who's going on to Stand and Deliver? Is it going to be the guy that comes over from NXT UK, or is it going to be the guy who comes from Australia? John DeConnie, start with you.
I mean, every A-Kid match that I've ever seen there's been a holy bleep moment in it, especially that finisher. Whenever he hits that springboard moonsault DDT, I mean, that is a showstopper for me. But I don't trust that the plan was to have him here long enough to have him for Stand and Deliver. So I'm going to go with the guy that I lose every time I bet against. So I'm going to bet on him this time and say Grayson Waller advances here.
All right, John Smith.
I'm going to go with A-Kid because I feel like they didn't bring him over here to not be on the show. Because why would they bring him here so close to Stand and Deliver and then send him back over there and not to be on it? So I'm going to go with A-Kid. Plus with Waller, they've been kind of building him up to be like, main event level type, and this is the mid-card title, so maybe he'll have like some different kind of feud altogether for Stand and Deliver.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards A-Kid as well. No particular reason, maybe similar to what John Smith was saying. But Grayson Waller certainly has been protected as well, so I could see him not wanting to lose to A-Kid, or them not wanting him to lose. But speaking of protected, speaking of NXT UK, we also have a second match for the North American Championship ladder match, another qualifier. Roddy Strong is going to be going up against Solo Sikoa, coming off his NXT UK win against Wolfgang and following his challenge of Ilya Dragunov. Roddy Strong is returning to the States here, and he's got a match with Solo Sikoa this week. John Smith, start with you. Who's going to the ladder match?
Give me Solo Sikoa, especially because Roddy's got all that stuff going on with the UK guys.
Yeah, John DeConnie, I tend to agree just because I've said it on this show before. Solo Sikoa is practically unbeaten. Roderick Strong is the guy that they like to beat.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas I think Roddy would be fantastic in the ladder match. It just seems like Solo Sikoa is meant for bigger things, so I think he advances here.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to remind you guys that we can do throughout the show. Don't forget to let me know when your winner is you moment comes. I'm going to give mine out right now as we talk about all the stuff that leads to what's going on in the women's division of NXT. Cora Jade is backstage with Mackenzie on NXT, and she, for some reason, saw that the Toxic Attraction's titles were just hanging out, so she stole them. Toxic Attraction, they come by, they're obviously ticked off about this, so they go meet up with Dakota Kai and Wendy Chu to ask some questions. Wendy says those girls are hot but weird, and I'm going to give my winner is you to Wendy Chu for that excellent analysis of the situation. JC Jane finds her tag team title hanging on a beam. She pulls it down. It was a trap. A cage comes down. Total mousetrap stuff. Gigi Dolan looks for her title. She finds it on a dumpster. She ends up in the dumpster or whatever. And now we're left with Cora Jade and Mandy Rose's title. But Mandy gets the jump on Cora. Cora was going to try to steal Mandy's SUV, but instead Mandy was inside waiting for her. I guess she figured that's exactly where she would turn up. So in the end, maybe a Scott Hall tribute. Mandy Rose did some spray painting on Cora Jade to kind of close out the show last week. So, all right. Santos Escobar says that he is the greatest luchador of all time, John DeConnie.
Yeah, and unbelievable coincidence. As he's saying this, Rey and Dom Mysterio just happened to be in the building and 5 feet away from them. So this leads to a little back and forth between them, mostly between Santos and Dom. So we get ourselves a match between Dom Mysterio, and he said, just pick anyone out of your boys there. Well, he winds up against Raul Mendoza. They take this one to the ring. We've got Elektra trying to distract Dom a little bit, and Fallon Henley, who obviously has had some issues with them. Well, she shows up, kind of gets in Elektra's face. Wild and Mendoza obviously Wild and Escobar, because Mendoza's in the match, kind of are flanking Elektra. So all of a sudden Briggs and Jensen show up. They're flanking Fallon Henley. We don't get any physicality there, but obviously, we could see something coming down the line. They already had words backstage last week about who jumped the creeds and blah, blah, blah. We get back, we take our attention back into the ring. Dom hits a 619. He does the shimmy. He does the frog splash. He gets the 1, 2, 3. And I don't know what really that accomplished other than Dom finally performing on NXT, where he probably should have been for the last year and a half.
Well, there goes my transition. Oh, in that case, without a transition. John Smith, I'll kick it right over to you. Indy Hartwell against Persia Parada in a best friends match, basically.
Yeah. This is the first time I've ever seen a tag team will come out together to fight each other. And they're fighting each other for like posing positions on the apron and stuff. That was real fun. You know, honestly, I don't remember how this match ended because then the two of them were just making out with their boyfriends after. And that's the real takeaway from this is they were having a makeout contest with their boyfriend. I'm pretty sure that Indy won it, right?
It's a roll-up. Indy.
Oh, yeah, Raw roll-up. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It was the competition of who can make out / hump the other.
The more hardcore makeout. Then they ended up on the ground rolling all over each other and stuff.
Who can kiss more hardcore? You're right. That's a good way to put it. Tommaso Ciampa comes to the ring, recaps his journey through NXT. Sounds like he's about to wrap things up, trying to figure out how he can sort of close the book, close the chapter on his NXT career. And out comes Tony D'Angelo, who has some nice things to say, challenges him to a match at Stand and Deliver. Ciampa says, okay, sounds great. They go to shake hands, and Tony gives him a low blow. But I guess we're on our way to Tommaso Ciampa versus Tony D'Angelo at Stand and Deliver. So there you go.
It looks like that's going to be Ciampa's last match in NXT. And
yeah.
If all things are go the way they've been in the past, Tony D'Angelo's getting the rub.
It does look like it. It looks that way. And Tommaso Ciampa's had a lot of matches recently on the main roster. He's been on Main Event a bunch. He's been on Raw a bunch. So it would make sense to me. And they repackaged his music. So, a lot of clues seem to be pointing that way.
No one will survive from that until I'm just trying to survive myself. It's a real two sides of the coin there.
All right. Well, for weeks we have been talking about the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. I say weeks; it's been like months because we had the guys tournament, then we had the girls tournament, and it's all coming to a close right now. The brackets are set. We have Dakota Kai and Wendy Chu going against Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray. Kaylee Ray and Io Shirai say they have a goal. They have a mutual goal, and it's championship gold. When Wendy Chu got to say her bit, that's when she said the Toxic Attraction's hot but weird. So anyway, Dusty Cup Finals. John DeConnie, who do you like in this? Is Dakota Kai going to go 2 for 2?
That would be a hell of a story, but from the very beginning, I thought it was going to either be Kaylee Ray and Io, or it was going to be Raquel and Cora. Obviously, I boofed it on Raquel and Cora, so I'm going to go with Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray taking the Dusty Cup, or putting their names on the Dusty Cup.
John Smith, it's very interesting that you take two women who pretty much held the NXT championships for their respective NXT brands for as long as they did, make a tag team out of them and throw them in the Dusty Cups. It's kind of like what was the first? Who won the first time? Samoa Joe and
Finn.
Yeah,
it's kind of the same thing. Yeah. But at the same time, they like to give people like first ever this, first ever that. Dakota could be the first ever 2-time Dusty Cup winner, right? So,
yes. Io could be the first ever Dusty Cup and champion, right?
What's that?
Io Shirai could be the first former NXT champion to win the Dusty Cup.
Oh, former NXT. Okay, yeah. I guess. Yeah, you're getting a little specific with that one. But I've been calling Kaylee and Io the whole time, but I feel like this might be a swerve for us. I'm going to go with Dakota and Wendy Chu. I think they needed more than these other two, and these other two could combust and end up with a feud of their own where they fight each other at Stand and Deliver, Io and Kaylee Ray. So I'm going to go with Dakota and Wendy Chu. I'm going to go against what I was saying for the past few weeks.
Wow. Yeah, I think the last match, Kaylee, let's see, what was it? Kaylee Ray and Io were going against Casey and Caden. And I said the same thing that you just said. I was like, Casey and Caden are the actual tag team. I'd rather see Io and Kaylee Ray fight each other. I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to go gonna pick Dakota Kai and Wendy Chu to win this match, and like you said, Kaylee Ray and Io Shirai facing each other at Stand and Deliver. That's what we want.
Hopefully in like a Falls Count Anywhere type match.
Anything.
Something where they can just be out of the ring or in the ring and doing crazy crap.
All right. From the NXT women's tag team division over to the men's tag team division. Malcolm Bivens is backstage trying to figure out who attacked the Creed brothers. He's got Idris Enofe and Malik Blade there. He's got the Grizzled Young Veterans. It seems like Enofe and Blade have been let off the hook. GYV having a lot of words with them. They've got a match this week. So we have the Creed brothers versus GYV in a match this week. And then we'll get into where the Creed brothers are going from here. John Smith, any chance the Creed brothers are going to be losing a match to GYV?
No, I will always pick against GYV after what they did to me last year in that Dusty Cup. So I love GYV too. Don't get me wrong. It's not a hate thing. It's just I won't pick them until they start winning again. I got the Creeds.
John DeConnie, John Smith has a point. The GYV is another Roderick Strong. The team they put in there to beat.
Yeah, exactly. And, I really thought they were going to have their moment by now for those NXT tag titles, but I almost fear that the moment's passed them by. They're not going to get that run, but hopefully they will. But I certainly don't think it's going to come here. I think the Creeds stay clean until they get that, where you're going next. I don't want to steal your thunder again.
Yeah, the Creed brothers still not satisfied. They head to the ring. They're not leaving until they find their attackers. MSK come out. They swear they didn't attack the Creeds. But anyway, it ends up being that we're going to have a triple threat match at Stand and Deliver. Imperium were there. So all sides have met. Creed brothers, MSK, Imperium for the tag titles at Stand and Deliver. Guys, it's gonna be a busy week on next week's show picking matches, but So when I think about what's been advertised for Stand and Deliver, this is probably the one that's most intriguing to me. Are those Creed brothers going to take these tag titles, or are we going to have Imperium continue on this run? Thoughts? Early thoughts? A week ahead?
I think it's inevitable that the Creeds win this. I don't know why they even added MSK to the situation to begin with. Maybe they want to protect Imperium for some reason. I don't know why they would want to do that, though. Imperium has been pretty dominant. The fact that they even won the titles again was, nobody had called that. Nobody saw that coming. So I don't know why they need MSK in this. I mean, maybe they're planning some awesome match. Who knows? Maybe we'll just get an awesome triple threat match and the Creeds still win. But it didn't make sense for me to get a MSK involved. It's almost like they didn't know what the hell to do with MSK besides have them in the title picture.
Well, I look at it kind of like this. This is the first event for NXT that they've sold tickets to in a long time. So they're probably trying to get as much in the show as they can. The Performance Center shows, those are all free admission. You just got to reserve your seat. Yes.
Yeah.
So how do you get that?
I'm on the list. I have this to be at, so I can't go.
Just get your ass down to Orlando, I guess. And
it's invite. You get on their mailing list and you can go.
I didn't know that.
So now Full Sail wasn't that way. Full Sail they sold tickets to, but since they've been in the Performance Center and especially since the 2.0 era and everything, that's all free admission as long as you're on the invite.
I wonder why they do that. I mean, I feel like they could definitely get at least $20 a seat.
Well, in any event, they have the American Airlines Arena in Dallas for this event. This is a big takeover level event. They haven't had one like this in a long, long time. So, maybe you're right. They're gonna have an awesome match because I'm sure MSK and can be tossed around by both the Creed brothers and Imperium.
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's get into the final bit here. Miz TV kicked off the show, but Miz TV we had with Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. LA Knight would interrupt, sets up Dolph Ziggler versus LA Knight at the end of the show. In the meantime, Gunther approaches LA Knight backstage, calls LA Knight an embarrassment to the sport. Knight just reminds him it's sports entertainment. LA Knight putting in his application for the Jericho Appreciation Society. Dolph Ziggler versus LA Knight and Dolph wins in the main event, retains his NXT championship. Braun Breaker returns to the building in the middle of the match. Ziggler does win with a super kick. Braun Breaker comes to the ring, wants his rematch, wants it at Stand and Deliver. That's where we're going for Stand and Deliver. But before Braun Breaker makes it to Stand and Deliver, he has a match against Robert Roode next week. Robert Roode, who took a pinfall last night. John Smith.
Why does Braun Breaker have the title on his shoulder?
Oh, because I don't have a graphic without it.
Okay.
That's how it is on WWE's website.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow. Of course, Braun Breaker is going to win this. So yeah, I don't see it. I mean, it's non-title, so I guess Ziggler could screw him over. But either way,
the title. Of course, it's not title.
Oh yeah, screwed me up.
John DeConnie.
Yeah, I think the best part of this match for Bobby Roode is going to be getting his glorious entrance, but I don't think it's going to work out for him once they get between the ropes. So give me Braun Breaker.
All right. That said, John Smith, you are leaving us here before we kick off the Impact portion of the show?
Yes, and the winner is you because you don't have to see me try to fake my way through some Impact in AEW.
We'll see because Impact's going to be fun. So
me and Bundy will bid you guys adieu. I got some family stuff to take care of. Love you all.
See you later, John.
Take care.
All right, John Smith has left the building. John DeConnie, it's just me and you. I gotta get the names off our face here. So let me do that. We're over on to Impact. This is a big episode of Impact that we have coming up this week. Last week's a bunch of different stuff happened. I mean, we had some newsworthy stuff. Deonna Purrazzo, she defended the AAA title and the ROH women's title in a triple threat champ challenge. She got a win over Giselle Shaw and Lady Frost. But the big story this week is we have 2 title matches, and we're just going to jump right in and pick the first one, John. So we have a tag team title match. It's Violent by Design versus the Good Brothers. It's a lumberjack match. This got set up by the Good Brothers meeting with Scott D'Amore about getting the rematch. Scott gave him the match this week. Whatever team comes out of this match will defend at Rebellion in an 8-team elimination match. That's going to be a mess. So it's like, what is the winner really getting here? John DeConnie, who's going to be the tag team? Are we going to go back to the Good Brothers already?
I mean, I guess I could see them doing it, but then what was the point of taking it off of them? You know, like save the big, if there's going to be a change from VBD, save it for the big show. So I'm going to say Violent by Design. I'm not even sure we get a finish to this match because we've already been told the Lumberjacks at ringside are going to be those other 6 teams that are going to be in the 8-team cluster bleep at Rebellion. So if we get winners, I'll say it'll be Violent by Design, but I'm not the least bit confident that we'll actually get a clean finish here.
Yeah, I kind of agree. On one hand, I'm like, well, it's a lumberjack match. There shouldn't be any DQs or anything. But if you have 6 other teams jump in the ring and they don't leave, the ref might throw the match out. So I'm going to throw it over to you, John, to talk about the opening contest, which is the Motor City Machine Guns defeating Jay White and Chris Bay.
Yeah, this one was 12 and a half minutes of, a winner is us. That was my pick for last week. I'll save it for this week because I think we're getting a repeat here. But we got an amazing match out of these teams, just like we were almost positive we were going to. We had the machine guns hit Skull and Bones on Chris Bay. Sabin covers. He gets the 1-2-3, but Jay White kind of dives in right at the end. And it was kind of an awkward moment where you're not sure if it was, did he just come up a millisecond too late, or was the match not really supposed to end there and somebody screwed the pooch? Either way, obviously the Bullet Club has a gripe because it was a very close bang finish, but the Machine Guns get the win. And I'm sure we'll see this again. What do you think?
Yeah, most likely. The main event of the show I went to over the weekend, which was the New Japan Strong taping, main event was Jay White versus Chris Sabin. So, nice little lead in here. So,
absolutely.
But New Japan Strong is kind of like Impact. We won't see that match for many, many weeks on television, so I won't give away the ending. Steve Macklin got a win over Rhino. He beat him with his own move, John DeConnie.
Yeah, Rhino, missed with a big lariat, turned around, and here comes Macklin charging at him, and we got ourselves a gore and a 1-2-3 for Macklin.
Yeah, and poor Rhino, he's not getting wins, and he didn't get a win at the last Premier Live event. He lost to Moose, so they're having some troubles. But Heath says he knows they're better together. So they're going to go after the tag titles. I can only assume they're one of the 8 teams. Man, it's almost hard not to pick them as the winners.
That's the Heath and Rhino back where they belong, right next to each other, having cheese and crackers.
Yeah. Luckily, that's next season. We don't have to pick that 8-team match this season. So.
That's true. Good point.
The inspiration, they have forgiven Caleb. They know he was just trying to help them out in their title match. Brian Myers continues his alternate commentary when he sits at ringside for Bhupinder Gujar versus Larry D. This was a mess. It had more to do with W. Morrissey putting somebody through the alternate commentary table, I think, John.
Yeah, and I mean, he's obviously got his sights set on Myers, but he's a sneaky little bastard. He seems to get away every time, and somebody else winds up right in Morrissey's field of view, and Morrissey's really not above putting anyone through a table. So Myers so far has been saved each and every time. This time it was poor Raj Singh that went through the alternate commentary table. That alternate commentary budget has got to be sky high.
It's like the Spanish announce table. All right. Well, speaking of Brian Myers and the learning tree, Zicky Dice goes one-on-one with Jonah. John DeConnie, you take it from here.
Yeah, and Zicky did the kind of thing that makes you say, like, what is this guy thinking? He turned his back on Jonah. So Jonah just clubbed him with, a big meat hook across the back to drop him. He goes up, tsunami, 1-2-3, and then afterwards we get poor Zicky Dice. He's very dejected. He's backstage with Gia Miller, and he's coming to the realization that maybe he just sucks at professional wrestling. Well, thank God Mean Gia was there. She told him, "Hey, maybe you should go to a wrestling school and get better at professional wrestling."
And what happened next?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. We should have talked about exactly how to set this up because it's too good not to talk about, even though there's no in-ring action here. We got a tease a couple of weeks ago with Johnny Swinger referring to Swinger's Dungeon. And of course, it's supposed to be a callback to the Heart Dungeon, but dungeon is also a code word for, adult entertainment and whatnot. Well, this week we got ourselves an infomercial for Johnny Swinger opening officially Swinger's Dungeon. And I can't wait to see the merch that comes out of this. But we had people that we've never seen on TV walking around backstage. We had a guy come by in leather with, studded spikes coming out of it that Swinger mistook for a real mark for demolition. So I'm assuming we're going to see Zicky Dice at some point show up at Swinger's dungeon. And oh boy, hopefully this draws out and lasts a long time. We get a lot of these little vignettes because, Swinger is gold, and this is just another wonderful setup.
This is why we watch Impact, folks. These 100%. All right, James Wheeler chiming in, reporting Hernandez is no longer with Impact. Also reported here by James Wheeler, but also reported by Sean Ross Sapp everywhere else. So yes, Hernandez has finished up with Impact.
Who's going to guard the door at Swinger's dungeon if Hernandaddy's not there? Oh no.
Yeah, it's a good question. And John, we'll take a break in our Impact discussion to address James Wheeler's question here. Who do we see leaving NXT for Raw or SmackDown after Stand and Deliver?
Ooh, this may be pie in the sky. This may be a pipe dream. I may be kidding myself. But, even though Vince doesn't like them, I'm a big fan of factions. And I almost jumped in the last segment when you were talking to John about Imperium. I mean, wouldn't it just be great if Imperium as a group went to SmackDown and feuded with the Bloodline? That would make me so happy for a little while there.
Yes. Look, Vince's guys are booking it now, right? Bruce Pritchard's there. He's got a hand in it. So hopefully he sees that too.
Let's hope.
So, although, as LA Knight will tell us, Gunther is a little light on the sports entertainment part. That might hold him back. But I think that's a good call out. I'm thinking Raquel Gonzalez because she kind of seems to be done. So.
Yeah. As long as that's not a legit injury that's got her out, quite frankly, if the Bianca thing is real and they need a last minute fill in there, wouldn't mind seeing her show up on Raw to get in Becky's face.
There you go. All right. I mentioned there was 2 title matches. There are that we're going to be picking this week. Mickie James is going to be going up against Tasha Steelz in a street fight for the Knockouts Championship on this week's episode of Impact. Chelsea Green volunteered as tribute. She wanted to be there for Mickie, but Mickie just didn't want Chelsea to get hurt anymore. So has asked Chelsea to not be there at ringside. John Smith or John DeConnie, are we tossing that belt back to Mickie James so that the pay-per-view marquee reads Mickie James defending at Rebellion?
I mean, that would make sense, but I mean, it would truly be, it would be another underdog story because it's a street fight. Mickey's already sent away her help. We know Tasha's going to have Savannah helping her out. So I don't see any way logically that Mickie wins, but that's kind of what wrestling is. They do that stuff to you. They make you say, "Oh, how about that? I never saw that coming." I'm going to go with Tasha here, but Mickey'd be a great story. I think you don't put it on Tasha and take it off her that quick.
Yeah, I agree. The same. Part of me was shocked that they took the belt off Mickie, when they did. But maybe this will somehow turn into another match at the pay-per-view. I thought Mickie James would be the name that they'd want for Rebellion, but it certainly feels like they might be finishing it up. So one person who probably won't be in the Knockouts Championship match at Rebellion is Masha Slamovic's most recent victim on the show. Snowplow for the win in a minute over RE, which was, I think Al would call her in action.
Absolutely.
All right, so that brings us to Josh Alexander versus Matt Taven in the main event. A lot of Eddie Edwards stuff surrounding this. I guess, John DeConnie, Eddie Edwards must not talk to his wife Alicia between episodes of Impact. So he's gone to Honor No More. Apparently they have like an apartment or something that they keep members. But Alicia has picked Impact over Honor No More, but she has not picked Honor No More over Eddie or
Impact over
whatever. She has not picked Impact over Eddie.
Right.
So she's holding out hope that Eddie will come to his senses. But anyway, Josh Alexander versus Matt Taven. Josh gets the win, 17 minutes practically. And then, John, I'll throw it to you. Moose did what?
Yeah, the storyline was that Moose was given his contract already signed by Josh for the Rebellion pay-per-view, and he had to be there by the end of the show to hand the paperwork in. Well, instead, he decided to go directly to Impact's management offices, which are apparently right down the street from Josh Alexander's home in Toronto, because that's how Josh wound up with his new contract and getting this title shot. Well, Moose didn't get there by the end of business hours either, so he just went by to Josh's house, rang the doorbell, and asked Josh's wife, Jade, hey, could you handle this for me? Scared the hell out of her, scared the hell out of their poor son who was hiding behind mommy's leg the whole time. A little bit of an awkward moment, but Moose left without any incident, just kind of, I guess, putting in her head, I know where you live, this could, it was kind of an unspoken threat, very unprofessional of Moose, but hopefully Impact will accept the contract, the timing of the contract being returned, but certainly it's pissed Josh off more than he already was pissed, and that's saying something.
I was gonna say, Josh was already kind of all keyed up for Moose. It's hard to, I mean, we're a ways out from Rebellion, but is this gonna be the Josh Alexander get back? You think is Josh gonna take this title back? There's a lot of time between now and then, but.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I don't know how you keep them up. If you thought he was looking for Moose every time he turned around before, now he's really going to be out for blood. So I don't know how you keep them apart for the next couple of, the next several weeks. But I mean, geez, the new contracts usually come with title runs. And, as long as the build to this continues to be fantastic, this would be a good spot to flip the title back over to Josh. Because, I mean, with all Josh meant to the company over the last year, he's got to have more than a 7-second title run.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't go to AEW with Ethan Page when his contract was up. I got to believe he had the opportunity. So,
wow, Brandy flat out told us it's the only reason why they signed Ethan Page.
Yeah, but then they, she's not there anymore either.
Brandy.
All right, let's switch over to AEW Dynamite and Rampage, for that matter. We had a show to pick last week. It was St. Patrick's Day Slam, so that portion of Dynamite was 4 points. We'll get to how we all did, and I blame John Smith for your performance, John DeConnie. Show kicked off as Adam Cole and Red Dragon going up against Hangman Page and Jurassic Express. Cole hit the boom knee on Jungle Boy to get the win in 13:56. So I'm not sure where exactly this is going. Cole getting a win over Jungle Boy. I thought it would be Red Dragon getting a win over Jungle Boy because that would set up a tag title match. Cole pinning Jungle Boy doesn't really mean that Cole should get another title match against Hangman Page. So I guess we'll see where things go from here. We had Keith Lee and Tony Schiavone backstage with Tony Schiavone, interrupted by Powerhouse Hobbs and Ricky Starks. Team Taz wanted to make sure that Lee didn't show up on Rampage. Lee just said he'll see you on Friday. The Acclaimed later, they had a promo talking about their match with Keith Lee. Again, Hobbs and Starks interrupt. They're rooting for Max to put down the new guy. Swerve shows up, says he's turning Fridays into whose house? Swerve's house. Swerve says it's not Stark's house, it's his house. But John DeConnie, all that's leading up to the Keith Lee and Max Caster match, which was the main event of Rampage. I know we're getting out of order entirely here, but take it on.
Absolutely, yeah. So a really good match between Max Caster, who's not a small man, but he's certainly not Keith Lee. Keith Lee, they got about 10 minutes out of this. It ended with the Big Bang Catastrophe, or whatever he's going to come to call it now. Then afterwards, it led to Hobbs and Starks. Starks is doing commentary on Rampage. Hobbs was just out there to hang with his boys Taz and Starks. They come down to ringside. Next thing you know, after the match, it's a 4-on-1 on Keith Lee. And even though it doesn't really even things up, Swerve comes running down with a chair, and apparently that's enough to run off all 4 guys. And we're left with Swerve and Keith Lee in the ring, and they seem to remember each other, and they give a little, they dab each other up, give a little bro hug and a back tap, and at least these 2 guys will have each other's back against at least Team Tav, if not Team Taz and the Acclaim going forward. So I'm sure we'll get some good stuff out of that, some tag team action perhaps. Keith
Lee is not the new Top Dollar. I just want to make sure everybody understands. Chris Statlander we had a video package for her. She's removing her contacts and face masks or face paint. Goodbye to the alien gimmick, I guess, potentially, but we'll see. Red Velvet, she was backstage with Tony Schiavone, said Layla was her friend, but now she must be stopped, and that led to their match on Rampage. Red Velvet gets the win here over Layla Hirsch. So, but then Layla tried to get a turnbuckle, the extra turnbuckle that they have to take advantage of Red Velvet. Chris Statlander came down to the ring, a little stare off. Ultimately, Red Velvet hit that corkscrew head kick for the win in 8 minutes and 6 seconds. John DeConnie, over to you. Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson, they have their first, I don't know, is their first or their second match as a tag team, taking on Chuck Taylor and Wheeler Yuta. And the big story here was Wheeler Yuta.
Yes, indeed. Now we know Yuta is a good young talent, and we know Moxley and Danielson have talked about taking good young talents under their arm. Well, the first thing they did was beat the hell out of the good young talent for almost 12 minutes, and it ended with Mox grabbing Yuta under his arm, or kind of in the crook of his arm, for the bulldog choke, and getting him to tap for the win. But then afterwards, Yuta left with his buddies from Best Friends and made it halfway up the ramp, then kind of rethought things, came back down to the ring, got into the ring where Regal had now joined his guys, Moxley and Danielson. And Yuta, the microphone wasn't quite on him, so we don't know exactly what was said. I personally don't read lips, but he stuck out his hand to William Regal as in to say, hey, I want to be part of this. And Regal promptly slapped the taste out of his mouth and basically sent him on his way. Now, I don't know if that was, maybe come back another time, or if that was a flat out no, because they didn't beat the hell out of him, which they certainly could have. But that was a very emphatic slap that sent Wheeler Yuta back out of the ring.
Called him Sunshine, I think. I mean, I couldn't read his lips either, but I'm pretty sure he called him Sunshine. I think Regal was impressed that Wheeler Yuta didn't, cower and walk away, that he got back in Regal's face. So we'll see what happens coming out of that storyline. I'm down for Wheeler Yuta being the first protege.
Sure.
That'll work.
Yeah.
By the way,
him, then leaving and going back with the Best Friends. So, it'll be interesting to see whether or not there's a segment this week where they spend any time talking to Yuta and maybe, inviting him to the new, whatever they're going to call their new dojo, which I'm sure will be brutal. So be interesting to see what comes out of it.
And if people have not listened to this week's Talk is Jericho or last week's Talk is Jericho with William Regal on, if you want to know what William Regal meant by I don't have long for this planet, listen to that episode. He goes through his health condition and issues over the last couple of years in great detail, and there's some scary stuff in there. So,
wow.
He was given 24 hours to live at one point, and other crazy things have happened to him. So give that a listen if you want to understand what he meant by that comment.
Wow. Okay. Some good info there. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. FTR was backstage with Tony Schiavone, and they were discussing the firing of Tully Blanchard, but the Young Bucks showed up just to remind FTR that they're always just going to be the second best tag team in the division. A lot of lot of not rumors, but speculation that Bret Hart might be coming in, and the way they put emphasis on the word best all the time, it seems to be like they're hinting that, but I don't know, John DeConnie, you think would FTR be any better with Bret Hart as their manager? Bret wasn't necessarily the best interview guy. Like,
yeah, I mean, Tully was so perfect in that role, and as much as I absolutely adore Bret Hart, I don't know if I want to see him as somebody's manager. I certainly don't want to see him back in the ring. You know, Tully did that, but you know, in a couple of little things here and there. Don't ruin the warm memories I have. But maybe that's where they're headed. You know, it's always great to see Bret. If he shows up and he looks healthy, then you know, as an old school fan, you're very happy for him. I don't need to see him get involved. I really don't.
No. All right. Well, the Jericho Appreciation Society come to the ring. They are pro wrestlers, but they are more sports entertainers. I guess that's how it comes down. That's if you had to like boil the entire promo down, it was basically Jericho saying, "We're sports entertainers. We're better than these pro wrestlers." Danny Garcia grabs the mic. Now, Danny Garcia, of all people, is a pro wrestler. He is. If I had to just look it up in the dictionary, you might see Danny Garcia or somebody who looks like him. It's perfect for as a pro wrestler. But he says, if Jericho is a sports entertainer, I guess I am too. The era of the sports entertainer has begun, and we're starting off this week. Jericho and Garcia versus Silver and Reynolds. Don't have a Garcia graphic, so John DeConnie. I don't see Jericho and Garcia losing their first bout out. Alex Reynolds taking the L for me.
I think you're 100% correct there. Yeah, I just the audacity of not only calling themselves sports entertainers, but saying that the era of sports entertainment is now begun. I mean, how just you may not like the goofy name, you may not like the fact that Jericho's putting a lot of emphasis on himself again, but how perfect a heel faction is that?
Sure.
Well, yeah,
James Wheeler saying that the name change to the real names was necessary because of the confusion that they'd have with Matt and Jeff Hardy. Of course, Matt Lee and Jeff Parker had to change their names to their real names. Yeah, that makes sense. They weren't going to get Matt and Jeff Hardy to change their names.
Certainly not.
Yeah, I've got Jericho Garcia. Serena Deeb's flattered that she'd have thought about her in rehab, but what will she think when she ends Sheeta's career?
Yeah, she's going to spend a lot of time thinking about her.
All right, so Scorpio Sky and Wardlow had their match, and this was one that we kind of went back and forth on the show. I think ultimately we all landed on Scorpio Sky retaining, but with the idea that MJF would get involved, and that's kind of exactly what happened. MJF did get involved. Wardlow managed to hit a bunch of power bombs on Scorpio Sky. Things were looking pretty good, but yeah, Wardlow, MJF came out. Pushed Wardlow into the ring post. Wardlow staggered back in, rolled up, got the win. Sky gets the win in 9 minutes. So Scorpio Sky remains the TNT champion. Afterward, Austin Vanderford attacked Wardlow. Wardlow fights off Vanderford. So the whole business here. MJF ends the proceedings with a loaded right hand to Wardlow, courtesy of the Dynamite Diamond ring. John, these are your notes. MJF's coming up to speak next week. So, I don't know. Thoughts on what MJF is going to say? I'll see you at Double or Nothing. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, exactly. I think, Wardlow stabbed him in the back, in the CM Punk match by not helping him and then inevitably helping out Punk. So, yeah, I think that's what took me off of Wardlow in this match. I think Al was the one 2 weeks ago who said, like, I thought Wardlow was going to take this TNT title, and then maybe MJF would be around a little bit because originally their deal was you have to hand it over to me. But he had said a couple of weeks ago, hey, buddy, I'm going for the world title, so I'll let you keep that TNT title. So I thought they were going to go their separate ways here, but then when Wardlow stabbed him in the back in the Punk match, okay. So MJF and Wardlow are going at it next. That's where this should go. That's where this belongs, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, except if Wardlow wants to face MJF, he's going to have to do the 28 labors of MJF, you know. So, like Cody Rhodes had to do it, and Jericho had to do it. I'm sure Wardlow will have to go through Spears and Vanderford and all the people.
Absolutely.
So, Jade Cargill wants to know who is going to be number 30. To which I say, that means she's not wrestling on Dark and Dark Elevation anymore. So I think that I'd like to have Jade continue to get the reps. So
certainly,
yeah. I'm sure they'll go back to putting her on matches there after the 30th win. QT Marshall plans to present Hook with a certificate of accomplishment. I was ready to be done with the Hook QT stuff. I was ready to move on, but it seems like we're going to get at least something else out of that. Darby Allin gets a win over the Butcher on Rampage, but it's by countout. Crazy.
Yeah. Very weird, but I mean, Darby got to, do his death-defying stuff. He had a code red on the floor, then a coffin drop from the top buckle to the floor, and that's pretty much what did it. Who's taking that and getting up in 10 seconds? So the Butcher got counted out. Darby barely made it back in himself. And then Andrade in the front office or what what is it? The family office. There you go. They came down. The Hardys run them off. Blah blah blah. We're gonna get. I'll let you do the honors.
An 8-man Texas Tornado match for Dynamite this coming week. Matt and Jeff Hardy also got a win over Private Party on Dynamite last week. So it's fun. It's we basically just had a trios tornado at the pay-per-view, and they're like, what would be like 2 people better is if we turn that into an 8-man tornado match with mostly all the same guys, but we'll add a couple. We had to add some. So Butcher and Blade were there for the trios match, so it's Private Party, Butcher and Blade versus Darby Allin, Sting, and Matt and Jeff Hardy on this week's episode of Dynamite in a 8-man tornado tag team match. Result the same, John DeConnie?
I don't see the Hardys losing. I don't see Sting losing. I usually don't see Darby losing. So there's nobody left on that team to take the fall. And it's tornado, so they're all going to be involved. It's probably going to range all over the building again. It's going to be utter insanity again. And it's the only thing that scares me is that it's fresh in our mind how nuts the last one was. And now you add Matt and Jeff to scheme together to come up with something even crazier. I can't wait to find out what that is, but I'm almost a little frightened to find out for their own health what that'll be.
Yeah, I'm hoping that, God. Yeah, first of all, you have Sting that jumps off of a balcony, and now you add Darby Allin, Matt, and Jeff Hardy into this. Every one of them is going to want to be the person that's being talked about afterwards. So
exactly,
I think Sting should just sit this one out.
Exactly. Let's just do another trios. Sting, we don't need you this time, buddy.
Thank God Sammy Guevara is not in the match too. Jeez.
Oh God.
House of Black got a win over Bear Country and Fuego del Sol on Rampage. And John, I think you were talking in the pre-production. You and I were talking that Murphy's Law. They picked Fuego del Sol out for him to hit Murphy's Law, and I'm sure it was like 600 miles an hour to the mat.
Yeah, the torque that he gets on that move is just insane. Now I know he's not going to get one of the guys from Bear Country up into that move, but obviously that's where Fuego del Sol plugs into this match. It was perfect, and it's every time he hits it, because you don't see Buddy all that often. I wish we saw him more, but I don't remember the last time I had seen that move. And when he hit it, I literally, whoa, just kind of jumped back from the screen. That was fantastic. And the House of Black gets the win. Who's their next victim? Probably circling back to the Death Triangle once they're all healthy and ready for
Yeah.
that.
Pentagon had a promo here kind of insinuating they weren't done. So Buddy Matthews, I saw him wrestle over the weekend on New Japan, so that'll be coming up. And then also he was on Major League Wrestling fighting TJP last week. It's on their MLW YouTube station, so you can check that out as well.
That's definitely good stuff.
Main event, John DeConnie, Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker in a steel cage match. AEW Women's World Championship on the line, a match that had been built up for I don't know how long. Well, I do know it's been exactly a year, but I guess there was build up before that. But break it down.
Yeah, so these two have really good chemistry together. So you knew you were going to get a good match. You knew you weren't going to get much interference, if any, because it was in the cage. That's the whole point of it. But you could still add some wrinkles, like having Britt Baker super kick the ref accidentally, missing Rosa and super kicking the ref. The ref bumps. Once it was a very weird cage match because there was room to fall out of the ring on one side, but yet it was almost flush on the other side. So the ref ate the super kick. He bumped to the floor. Rosa immediately rolls Baker up. There's no one to count. Rosa then picks Britt up, hits her Fire Thunder driver. There's no one to count. Britt hits an avalanche air raid crash into a pile of chairs on Rosa. There's still no one to count, and Britt loses her mind and screams up the ramp, and Aubrey Edwards comes in to save us all. And then Britt builds this insane Cactus Jack pyramid of chairs. Then the two of them are up on the top, they're where the cage is closest to the ropes. They're up in the corner there. They're both jockeying for position. Britt unfortunately winds up falling through her creation. That was an ugly bump. Britt then she brings out the tacks again, which she seems to love going for the velvet bag underneath. It's
JR hates it.
Yeah, JR can't stand it. And they both wind up taking bumps into it, but most importantly, Rosa would again hit the Fire Thunder into the tacks, the 1, 2, 3, hashtag and new women's AEW champion, Thunder Rosa. And afterwards, we had Dustin Rhodes. I don't know if he did any training with her, but clearly, at the very least, a fellow Texan comes in, give her a big hug in her moment of triumph, and your new champion, Thunder Rosa.
Well-deserved, well-earned championship win for Thunder Rosa. I don't know what it's going to be like without the Britt Baker era now over. So, but Thunder Rosa. Any thoughts on who our first challenger is going to be?
Is there any way she avoids at least doing it one more time with Britt?
Yeah, they could, but I would think they would give Britt some time off. I would think.
Yeah, probably. I mean, maybe Hayter goes after her. They've already had some issues there. Maybe Mercedes turns on her. They were kind of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, going against Britt and crew. So. They shouldn't have too much trouble coming up with a bad guy or bad gal, I should say, to go after her. But we know the matches are going to be, as long as they give her a good dance partner, we know the matches are going to be good because we know Rosa can bring it.
That's right. Well, here's where we stand for our AEW standings. I am the official winner. I was going to be no matter what, it seems like, because but John Smith goaded John DeConnie into making a different pick on last week's show just to try to get the win. So it didn't work out, but I went 5-0. Also, Gary Mehaffy with a rare, perfect AEW show, and Travis also went 5-0. So here's our perfect stand. Oh my gosh, I'm at the top of that list too. Travis gets his first perfect pay-per-view. Gary with his fourth. So very good stuff there. Everybody did quite well last week. Here are our overall standings. Happy to report that I am a significant lead going in to WrestleMania weekend, but there's a lot of points out. lot of points. The main event of WrestleMania Night 2 was worth 100 points. So stand and deliver and everything. I could certainly blow this lead. So
I think I'm gonna have to bombard you with texts and calls and whatnot to get you to just completely forget about submitting your picks for WrestleMania.
there you go. Yeah.
That way I have a chance of catching it.
Let me pull that back up. So I have the lead over you by 160 points. Al Carl's right behind you, so it's neck and neck there. So
absolutely.
So it'll be interesting to see how things shake out. Here's the Raw roll-ups from last week. Indy Hartwell on NXT got a roll-up over Persia Pirotta. Scorpio Sky over Wardlow. There's one for AEW. Look at these two. Oliver Carter over Tyler Bate. Aaliyah James over Stevie Turner. Gary Mehaffy's not even here to talk about NXT UK this week. Al will catch up with him next week. But two Raw roll-ups on NXT UK, and then Finn Balor over Austin Theory. Here's where we stand. Raw still with a four roll-up lead over AEW. So Raw still maintains their reputation.
That UK roster making their argument to get brought stateside. You know, if you can perform a perfect Raw roll-up, you've got a chance.
That's right. Chad Gable, he is leading the pack, although it's a three-way tie with Rey Mysterio and Tommaso Ciampa. Everybody else has got one. Most losses, The Miz, Robert Roode, Dom Mysterio, Sami Zayn, and Wardlow all tied at 2. So that'll be a really interesting metric once we get towards the end of the year. All right. All that said, let's move into, if you liked this show, and I know you did, we have a sports show, the Primetime Rundown. But it is on hiatus right now until after the NCAA basketball tournament concludes. They will be airing their instant reaction segments very frequently throughout March Madness. Make sure you go to the Eastern Observer YouTube page, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of their episodes this month. It will be madness. We do have a new show on the Eastern Observer, and it is The Sunday Sauce with Tyler Adele every Sunday afternoon, hosted by Tyler and his partner, Andrew Macaria. They bring you everything NHL and all the league's happenings. Get saucy this Sunday afternoon with the Sunday Sauce right here on all of the Eastern Observer platforms. Sign up to the newsletter, the Minutes to Bell Time newsletter. You can get that at bodyslambrigade.com. There's over 5,000 subscribers. Each week I send out a column. So go get yours completely free, bodyslambrigade.com. Check out the Black Cats' new album, new-ish, their moderately young album, Free Cake. It's available everywhere you listen to music, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Deezer, YouTube, Pandora. This album will soon be a teenager, I think, but we're going to still call it new every week. So, as always, the Essential Wrestling Podcast, sponsored by Pro Wrestling Pick'em, is the Essential Wrestling Podcast. That's us here every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Join us as we make our picks for all of the week's matches. We'll be back with episode 99 next week. That doesn't include our specials, so we've got over 100 episodes available for you to go back and listen to if you'd like to. As always, the Essential Wrestling Podcast is sponsored by Pro Wrestling Pick'em, the internet leader in sports entertainment pick'em pools. Join us in the EWP public pool to play against us, or create a private pool with you and your friends. PWP.com. Play against us. Or ProWrestlingPick'em.com. Play against your friends. Play against the universe. And as mentioned early in the show, do join us April 1st at 4 p.m. We are going to go over each and every single match on the WrestleMania Night 1 and Night 2. We have on this WrestleMania special. We'll be making our picks, find out who we think are going to win these big matches. The most stupendous match in wrestling history. So we'll be making our pick for that. John Akani, anything before we get out of here?
I think we've covered it all, soup to nuts. We hope to see Al back and Gary back next week. John Smith, I'm sure, will be aboard with us. He's our Iron Man. So looking forward to that.
Well, take us home, sir.
All righty. Thanks for joining us. And as always,